Hey Tackle Warehouse fans, Mike Iaconelli here with probably my favorite new bait I've fished in the last year. And this is, I know you've heard about it, have you seen pictures of it? But this is the Berkley Powerbait Gilly. It's a unique bait in size and shape. It's a unique bait in colors. And it's really a unique bait in action. Let me show you some of the features of this thing, and then I'm gonna go through 6 or 7 different rigging options, but really this thing is the most versatile soft plastic swim bait I've ever fished. First thing, when you look at the Gilly, you're gonna see is that it has a wide-bodied profile to imitate forage. Bass eat wide-bodied forage all over the country, so when they see that profile, it has a triggering instinct that draws the fish to it, right? Most plastic swim baits out there are elongated. They're thin, they're long, but the Gilly is wide-bodied, and that's a key feature to this bait. Second thing is the design of the bait. And when you look at this Gilly, the front half is solid, but the back half is stamped. It's actually die cut. That die cut stamping process in the back of that Gilly gives it fluidity of motion. And that's really one of the most important things about this bait, is that when you see it swim, and we're gonna go over a lot of different rigging options, but when you see it swim, you're gonna see this fluidity of movement, and it almost has this slithering motion in the water that is just like a bluegill or a panfish or a tilapia or a warmouth. It's exactly the same. It's that slithering motion, and that's achieved through that die-cut body and these built-in rudder fins. When you get to the top of the bait, the solid section, it's a little deceiving because you can cut that bait right in the middle, and the top half of the Gilly is hollow. We have a hole there. That'll give you some rigging options, but more important than that, the top half being hollow, the bottom half being solid. Here's the kicker, you ready? No matter how you rig it, because the bottom's heavy, this thing will swim in the anatomically correct position, right? It'll swim just like a bluegill, just like a sunfish. Even when you let it sink to the bottom and it hits the bottom, it's gonna sit on the bottom in an anatomically correct position. It's a really amazing bait. It's got amazing action. With that profile, that motion, the way it rides, it's gonna draw strikes, it's gonna draw fish to the bait. All right, before we get into rigging, let me mention that the Gilly is available in 3 sizes: a 90 millimeter, a 110 millimeter, and our big 130 millimeter. The great thing about these 3 size options, right, is you could really dial it in to the size of the forage in the fishery you're fishing, right? You can match the size of those panfish or bluegill. That little 90, perfect imitation of young of the year, a yearling bluegill. That 110, that's a great size of a young adult bluegill, a 2 or 3 year old bluegill or crappie. And then as you get to that big one, the 130, what a great imitation of an adult bluegill or an adult panfish, right? So 3 sizes, and it comes in standard colors and HD colors to really dial in that forage match. And let me tell you, the HD colors are spot on to some of those species of forage that we mentioned. All right, let me get to the good stuff. This Gilly gives you endless amounts of ways to rig it, but I'm going to give you, let me give you my top 6 or 7 rigging methods, but don't limit yourself to these. There's a lot of other ones out there as well, right? On a drop shot, on a Tokyo rig, on a bladed jig, on a underspin, on a Carolina rig, on the back of a jig. There's so many ways, but let me go through my 6 or 7 top ways to rig it. Okay, first one is a simple one, And I love this rigging method for when I want to keep this gilly on top of mats, on matted vegetation on the surface. So lily pads, grass, hydrilla, anything like that, pennywort, and it's Texas rigging. And I like to just do a standard weightless Texas rig because it will ride over the mats. And it's nice because that gilly pushes down a little bit. And once it gets to the edge of the mat, right, it's gonna push, push, push. Once it gets to the edge of the mat, it rights itself, the heavy end's on the bottom, and it gets that natural swimming motion. The other great thing about straight weightless Texas is look how flat the gilly is. And because of that, it'll skip like crazy. Skip under overhangs, under docks. So weightless Texas, number one. Number two is weightless side rigging. And side rigging is basically just like a Texas, except I'm positioning the hook in that lower portion at an angle. And side rigging gives me a better all-around swimming motion in open water. So if I'm fishing mats, Texas rig is great, but in open water, side rigging, and I also like to use a ringed hook with this as well. So side rigging, number two. Number three, the good old regular Texas rig with a weight. And all three sizes, this is a phenomenal bait to Texas rig, just like you would a worm or a crawl or a creature or a beaver. But it gives you that bluegill profile and that amazing action we're talking about. So lightweight tungsten all the way up to punching mats. Texas rigged is a great method. This is one of my favorite, and talk about easy way to rig it is with a weighted swim bait hook. So grab your favorite keel weighted swim bait hook, and even with that big weight on the shank of the hook, that thing will swim in the anatomically correct position. On a weighted swim bait hook, I'm able to get this gilly a lot deeper than some of those other methods. So fishing at 5, 10, 15, 20 feet down, not a problem, rig like that. On a jig head, simple, easy method, just like the weighted swim bait hook. Your favorite jig head or swim bait jig head, ball head. There's a good look at the 90 rigged on a regular ball head swim bait head. Great technique. Even on a spinning rod, it's a great technique. As a trailer on your favorite jig or chatterbait style lure. And here's the thing with it as a trailer, the profile. So now on the back of a jig or a bladed jig, we can change the profile of that lure and really give it that panfish bluegill profile. All right, last but not least, I'm gonna give you one more, and this is definitely a sleeper, especially for more open water situations, and it is through line style. And it's real easy. All I'm doing is taking a pop rivet. There's a look at the pop rivet right there. I'm pushing the pop rivet through the nose of the bait. My line threads through that rivet, and to the end of my line, I attach a treble hook, and I just bury one of the hooks in the body. When I do that, I've got a bait that swims anatomically correct, and when the fish hit this one, you've got them. That's a great hookup percentage, rigged through line. All right, there you have it. The Berkley Powerbait Gilly showed you a whole lot of options. Don't limit yourself to those. You can rig it any way you want. The great thing about this bait, looks real, it swims natural. The profile, the action have drawing power, and the fish have to eat it. This is the brand new Berkley Powerbait Gilly, available right now on Tackle Warehouse.